Okay, it looks like we've got everybody in from the waiting room. So welcome everybody. This is probably going to be our largest, best attended AM 101 of the year. Just a reminder to everybody, it will be recorded. So please make sure that you keep your microphones off and bear in mind that I will send everyone who registered, all 170 plus people, a follow-up email. Actually, Nick's going to send it today so that you'll have all of this information and any of the meeting materials by the end of the day today. It will also be recorded. So if you need to watch it again, which by the way, this last year was probably the best, most viewed on our YouTube as well. So very important because it's our billing. And without any further ado, I'm going to introduce Keesman Tramer, who will be the MC of this show, which is the 2023 dues billing. Thanks, Keesman.
Thank you, Peggy. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our dues billing compliance webinar. First, I just want to say thank you for joining us today. You know, this is that time of the year where we're all super busy, right? And so we have a ton of information that we are going to share with you today, information that we believe is going to make your dues billing process as smooth and easy as possible for 2023. I know you're going to have a lot of questions today during the presentation, but if you don't mind, we're going to take your questions at the end of today's presentation. And so I'm not going to take up a lot of your time. So at this time, I am going to turn it over to our main presenter today, and her name is Eliza Karapetian.
Thank you, Keesman. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our 2023 dues billing compliance webinar. Give me 1 second to share my screen. Okay, so welcome to our dues billing webinar for 2023. It's a pleasure to have you join us. I want to thank you for taking the time. And I do want to warn you that the material does get somewhat dry and meticulous, but I will do my best to simplify this for you as much as possible. And I also want to point out that we'll be providing you with my contact information at the end. So please feel free to reach out with any of the questions you may have. If we don't answer them today, do not hesitate to contact me and I will find answers for you. Without further ado, let's begin. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about here in the big picture of things is our goal. What is our goal here? Our first goal is legal compliance. We need to make sure that we're in compliance with all applicable state and federal laws. All of this requires transparency to our members. So when our member is looking at the dues bill, they need to know where exactly their money is going. They need to know what their opt-out rights are with regard to some of the contributions. There are certain IRS rules that we need to comply with. For example, members need to know that a portion of their bill is non-deductible. This language has to be clearly set forth on the dues bill. We are collecting political contributions on the dues bill, so there are certain mandatory disclosure paragraphs that need to be on the face of the bill, which we'll talk about. There are recommended disclosure languages that we'll also discuss. So legal compliance is the primary goal, and we also have policy compliance. That's our goal here today. There's a cooperative agreement in place with local associations, and pursuant to the cooperative agreement, the Realtor Action Fund has to be included in your annual dues billing statement, and it has to be included above the line. We'll talk about above the line requirements shortly. Have there been significant changes to the 2023 dues billing statement? The answer is yes. The board has approved a dues bill increase in the amount of $41. As such, the amount on your C.A.R. allocation and assessment on your dues billing template is now $225 for 2023. Here's a screenshot from the template showing you the increase. Tools for compliance. How can we help you comply? Our goal is to help you comply. Our goal is to make it as smooth as possible. You can find the 2023 dues billing template, which will be posted after this webinar. Here's the link that you can find these documents at. Look for the dues billing compliance checklist. It goes through one by one and lets you know what specific things you need to watch out for. This year, we prepared another document to help you comply. It's called the dues billing annotation document. It has annotations line by line going through the dues bill and explaining to you what requirements you have to comply with. It goes through and lists the exact, this disclosure language that you need to copy and paste on your dues bill, literally. So please look for that document. That's very helpful. Also find the memo on local lobbying expenditures. We're going to talk about, the local lobbying expenditures that's going to be on the dues bill, the portion of your dues that are non-deductible used for lobbying expenditures. And this memo basically helps you understand how you can calculate this amount. So please look for all of these documents that will help you comply. Do we need to track political contributions on the dues bill? As I mentioned, we have political contributions on the dues bill, and we must absolutely track those contributions. All political contributions, whether it's RAA or RAS, has to be in the name of the person that's actually paying. And in addition to that, all of the contributions have to be tracked accurately. So, for example, you can't have one member pay dues for another member because those dues include political contributions and assessments. So it's very important that we track political contributions to comply with the law. Now I want to talk a little bit about the RAA requirements. One of the requirements on the, did I skip? Okay, sorry about that. So one of the political contributions that we collect is the Realtor Action Assessment, also known as the RAA. The RAA has to be included on the state allocation line, and it has to be explicitly identified. This is a $69 mandatory assessment, and it's part of your state allocation line, and you can put RAA if you have space limitations. For RAA, you have to include either an asterisk, as we have here on our template, or you can include any other symbol referencing the member to the RAA disclosure paragraph, and the disclosure paragraph has to be on the face of the bill. You can find this disclosure paragraph on the dues billing template. What do you need to know about the RAA disclosure language? It has to be used exactly as shown on the dues billing template. And again, it must start with the same symbol included on the RAA line. As we have here, we have a single asterisk. So if you use our single asterisk, then the single asterisk will be found again on the face of the bill for paper bills, and on every single screen, RAA is referenced on your dues billing portal, and it will have the RAA disclosure language. So every time a member looks at their dues bill and sees RAA $225, for example, right here, they will see this asterisk and they will be able to view on the same page of the bill or on the same screen for dues billing, they will be able to view that mandatory RAA disclosure language. Let's talk about the RAF requirements. RAF is entirely voluntary and members need to know that. And it's very important that we comply with the RAF above the line requirements. RAF has to be written on its own line, and it has to be written, it has to be above the line on your dues bill. So you will choose either $49 or $148. This is a screenshot from the template where RAF is found on the dues bill. Okay, so all five, what does it mean to be above the line? There are 5 elements that must be met in order for RAF to be considered above the line. Let's talk about those 5 elements. The first element is you have to explicitly state that RAF is optional or voluntary. You can do this by either using the terms optional or voluntary, or you can have a symbol as we have done on our template right here. So you have the symbol next to RAF, and down here you specify that RAF is voluntary. The second element to meet the requirement is you have to include a default amount of either $49 or $148. As you see here on our template, we've shown you both. The member must have only one option to remove RAF from the screen or from the paper bill. So there has to be, with regard to your dues billing portal, there has to be only one screen to uncheck a box. It's not compliant if a member has to fill in the RAF amounts. It's not compliant if a member has to check a box to contribute. So the RAF box has to have been already checked. And if the member decides they don't want to contribute, they will uncheck the box and remove it. Finally, the last element is you have to include either a double asterisk or any other symbol that refers the member to the RAF disclosure paragraph, which also has to be on the face of the paper bill, or when you're dealing with an online billing portal, it has to be on the same screen as the RAF line. Let's talk about the mandatory RAF disclosure language. As I said, required by law, you have to have the disclosure language, and you can use the exact, not you can, but you must use the exact disclosure language that's shown below. You can find the language on the template as well. And there are 2 exceptions to having, oh, sorry about that. So there are 2 exceptions to using the language exactly as it is. The first one is the amount has to be updated to match the amount that you include on your RAF line. So on our template, you'll see we've used $49. If you're collecting $148 on your dues bill, then you would revise the $49 in this paragraph, both places, to say $148. So that's the first exception where you're going to be making a revision to this paragraph. The second exception is for the last sentence here, our template shows that the legal notices and disclosures can be found on the reverse side of the statement. Well, if you, for example, include your legal notices as a separate insert, then the last sentence has to be revised accordingly. So you would revise it to say, please find our legal notices as a separate insert. So those are the 2 places that you'll be making revisions to the mandatory RAF disclosure language. Okay, sorry about that. Any other mandatory disclosures you need to be aware of? The answer is yes. You have to state that political contributions are not deductible as charitable contributions. Here's the language from our template. And I want to point out that this language has to be on the face of the bill. It has to be at least the same font size as the billing language and amounts. And it has to be its own paragraph or the first sentence of the paragraph. For electronic bills, it's required that the language has to be on the same screen as the dues billing language and amounts. Are there any optional disclosures? The answer is yes. Although it's not required, we recommend that you advise our members that a portion of their bill is deductible as a business expense. Here's the screenshot from the template where we use language to let them know that a portion of their dues bill is deductible. I want to talk about the C.A.R. Housing Affordability Fund. We strongly urge local associations to include a voluntary charitable contribution for C.A.R.'s Housing Affordability Fund. HAF plays an active role in addressing the ongoing housing affordability crisis, and it promotes housing and homeownership. When you have C.A.R.'s Housing Affordability Fund on the dues billing statement, the dues bill has to state that the donations to HAF are voluntary. There are mandatory disclosures for charitable contributions. So for HAF and for any other charities on your dues bill, you must include language informing the member that the contributions are tax deductible. Here's the recommended language that you can use from the C.A.R. template. I also want to point out that the deductibility language has to match the size of the billing language. The language has to be on the face of the bill when you're dealing with physical paper bills, and it has to be on the same screen if you have a billing portal. So on the screen that HAF appears where you're collecting, on that same screen you would have the language. Let's talk about the mandatory disclosure of lobbying amounts and percentages. Your dues bill has to present a breakdown of the estimated non-deductible portion of the total dues used for lobbying by NAR, C.A.R., and your local association. And you have to include the percentage and the dollar amount. This is the percentage and dollar amount for NAR and C.A.R. for 2023. Here's a screenshot. Every year, C.A.R. provides you with the updated NAR and C.A.R. breakdowns. You have to provide the percentage in dollars for your local association. If it's 0 for both percentage and dollars, then you have to put 0 here, and you have to calculate the total amount and put the dollar amount up there in the total. As I mentioned before, there's a memo on local lobbying expenditures. You can take that, review that memo. It gives you instructions on how you can calculate if you need further assistance on that. So you will be required to calculate and insert your local percentage and dollar amount. I also want to point out that this language with the numbers and the percentages and dollar amounts, all of this has to be on the face of the bill. So when you're dealing with a paper bill, on the face of the bill, when you're dealing with online bills, dues billing portal, it has to be on the same screen as where your dues bill is. So they can't click on another it's not compliant if they have to click on something and go to another screen. All of this language, all of these numbers have to be on the same screen as your dues bill. And it has to be in at least the same font size as the billing language and the amounts. As I said, the 2023 lobbying amounts and percentages can be found on the template, so you can pull those numbers from the template. I also want to note that for NAR, the estimated non-deductible portion applies to the entire NAR allocation of $195. So when we're giving you the percentage for NAR, it's taking it from the entire $195. That includes the $150 dues, as well as the consumer advertising assessment, which is $45. Since both of that is all on one line, our calculation for the percentage is based off of $195, not $150. Let's talk about the legal notices and disclosures. Every dues billing statement must include the most current legal notices and disclosures regarding dues billing statement. The most current one can be found at this link here below, so please go there and use the legal notices from this link. Every year we provide the most current legal notices that you need to use. Where do you put the legal notices and disclosures? For paper bills, it can be printed on the reverse side of the bill, or it can be a separate insert. For email bills, you can have the full text be in an email. It can be a separate attachment, or it could be a link with an explanation. And for online bills, it can be on the main page of the bill or a link with an explanation on the main page of the bill. So you have to have, your legal notices go with your dues bill, and regardless of how you decide to distribute it to members, make sure that your RAA disclosure paragraph is revised according to how you're providing the legal notices and disclosures. Are there any additional requirements that you need to be aware of? The answer is yes. Some of the associations have installment payments. Please be advised that you must disclose which of these installment payments include the political contributions, such as the RAA and RAS. Additional rules apply. For example, political contributions have to be deposited into the PACs within 30 days of receipt. You cannot float PAC money. Fines may be imposed. So the C.A.R. allocation and the $69 RAA has to be submitted to C.A.R. by January 1st to ensure compliance with all of these laws. So please be advised that additional rules apply with regard to political contributions. And especially when you're dealing with installment payments, we will, like any other bill that we need to review and approve, we cannot distribute your dues bill to members before C.A.R. reviews and approves it. Please make sure that even dues bills with installment payments are reviewed by C.A.R. and cleared before you distribute to members. Are there any other compliance requirements that you need to be aware of? There's a new timing requirement with regard to compliance, and I would like to ask our Assistant General Counsel, Brian Manson, to talk about this. Brian?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, you can take this off for the moment, Eliza. Thank you. So as Eliza pointed out at the top of our presentation today, legal compliance is our #1 goal. It is very, very important to C.A.R., but it's also important to you. It's important to your members. Being legally compliant is what helps us achieve our political goals, both in Sacramento and in Washington, D.C. So it's very important that when it comes to the political portion of the dues contributions, that we're legally compliant. I mean, that should be obvious, but I know to a lawyer that's always a goal. But to you, it's also important in achieving your local goals, your statewide political goals, and in Washington. As most of you probably recall, we've talked about this year in and year out. Political dollars contributed by members have to be deposited into the PACs within 30 days after the member makes the payment. This is a legal requirement. we have to do it in order to be legally compliant. But we've gotten some reports recently where we're able to look and see that there's, how do I want to say this on a recorded webinar? We're not always getting the funds in time to meet the goals. And sometimes that makes it a challenge. And I'm just going to leave it at that. You can take into it what you want. Sometimes we're getting the funds, but we're not getting the records that identify who the contributors are. Sometimes we're getting the records, but the funds come later. It's very important that we get both the payments and the records in time for us to allocate the contributions and get them into the appropriate packs within that 30-day deadline. And of course, for very significant contributions where more than 50 will go into any particular pack, that is a 10-day requirement. For our normal dues, because it's split up, the Realtor Action Assessment and the $49 or $148 Realtor Action Fund contribution, those are split up among a number of packs and nobody hits that $50 threshold. So the 30-day deadline applies to those. But if somebody were to give a $2,000 or even a $500 RAF contribution, that's got to come into us within 10 days. If you have questions, reach out to us, reach out to finance. I'm sure Keesman is familiar enough with these rules. He can answer all those questions. But it's absolutely necessary that we get the payment itself and the records that say who made the contributions within 30 days every single month. Now, without going into it too much, Eliza touched on this, but if we can't see who contributed, then we can't allocate it among the packs. There are various things for that. Eliza talked to you earlier about making it absolutely clear we need to know who actually paid the funds. Now, we've heard occasional cases of a broker helping out an agent and paying their dues for them. Well, even though it's paying for a particular agent, we need to know that the broker made the payment. An agent might help another agent. Maybe a broker is trying to comply with the BCT deadline and help you out, help your association out with the BCT compliance. And so the broker pays for 3 agents. Well, we need to know that the broker paid for that, not the 3 agents. It's fine that they did that as long as the members have agreed to be members, that's fine. But we do need to know that the broker made the payment, not the individuals. It's very important that we be able to assign contributions to the right person to be legally compliant. You can notify finance who's actually paying dues for a member in the payment record if there's any issue with that. Okay, so turning back to timing, we've talked with our finance team, and like I said, we learned that we're not always getting the records and the payments in time for us to make the allocations and get that into the appropriate reporting for both the federal and state legal requirements. Because of this, we have to change the process. Go ahead, Eliza, if you can put that last slide back up. So effective immediately, every association has to submit all state dues allocations and assessments to C.A.R twice a month. And this is a change. It has to be, you have to make the payments along with the payment records by the 15th and the last day of each and every month. This is absolutely necessary for us to comply with these requirements. Now, this goes into effect immediately. This isn't waiting for the new year or waiting until, you know, the rush of dues season is over. This is going into effect immediately, which will give you a few times to kind of get it in as part of your process before we really get into the rush of renewal season. So C.A.R will be expecting to receive those payments and dues records on Monday the 31st, just, you know, a week and a half from now. We know this is a big change. We all stand ready to help you as best we can, but you know, we know that puts an onus on you. For any months where the 15th or the last day fall on a weekend or holiday, it's going to be due before that weekend or holiday, because the 30-day deadline doesn't really give us any room there. So that is a new requirement. Please make sure your associations know it. We're going to be talking with the AEs. I think I'm scheduled to talk to them next week. You know, we want to make sure that this gets to the right people in your organization. If anyone in your organization has any questions, they can contact me, Brian M. at CAR.org, or my number is 213-739-8246. You can reach out to Kiesman, you can reach out to finance, you can reach out to Eliza, and she'll get it to me, or she can probably answer a lot of these questions directly. It's just absolutely imperative that we remain legally compliant. Not being compliant damages our ability to lobby. It gives room for people to attack our legislative efforts. It can lead to fines. If we know that this is a significant issue, and if this doesn't resolve the issue, if this twice a month schedule doesn't resolve the issue, we may have to look at even more frequent payments, weekly, which would be even more of a burden. We may have to look at sanctions for associations that regularly violate these requirements. We don't want to do that. You don't want to deal with that. So, work with us. We'll be able to meet the legal requirements for the state, the local, and the national, and it'll help us achieve our goals. I think I saw a question come in chat, so let me take a look at that. If we submit on the last day of the month and receive a payment at the end that day after work hours, you can group it into the next payment on the 15th, exactly, because then if you get it on that day, that's what, roughly 15 days, maybe 18 days, but that still gives us time to do it as long as you give us the payment record. Is there a time deadline for the 15th and 30th? We didn't talk about a time deadline. I mean, I would say end of business day. If we're getting them every 15 or 16 days, we're going to be okay with that. That gives us time to identify any issues, resolve them, and still meet our compliance. Will you be creating the form to report? It's your current payment records that you're submitting to finance for the members who are paying. There's no new form involved. If there's more to that question, maybe Tracy can explain that, because I don't deal with that necessarily.
No, neither do I, but my finance person's on vacation, so.
Okay.
She knows what she's doing, I would assume.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. As we understand it from finance associations that submit a lump payment, submit a payment record saying who made the payment, which part is RAA, which part is RAF, etc. Beyond that, I'm sorry, I don't have that detail. How do you prefer that we track and code if the broker or company pays for agents or political dues? Email to finance. I think that's the right way. I'd love to hear in the chat, or, are there a lot of those, or is it very few? I've believed it's very few, but it would be interesting to hear, feedback from those of you who are dealing with these. Excuse me.
A lot of team leads pay for their team members, and
okay.
A lot of corporations pay for their office managers or their brokers.
Okay, so if that's happening, yeah, then that needs to be reported. I would say email to finance, and I'll alert them that they're going to start to see those. But in that case, where a team lead pays for their team, let's say there are 5 people on the team, and boy, I'm going to have to do math in my head. At $69 per person, that's $345 that the team member is contributing, not $69 for each of them, because each of those people, they're paid for. It counts as payment for them, but they're not making the contribution, if that makes sense. Split payments will count with this time deadline. I'm not sure what that means, Joseph, so I'll come back once I read Ruben's question above it. When we split payment, we put down 25 at 184, which of course will be 225 for next year, but it's still 184 now. Ruben, I don't think you're done with that. Because we always needed to know who those 25 people were. Now, if they're paying via credit card through e-commerce, where their individual payment is tracked through e-commerce, maybe we already have that information, but I don't think that's your question.
Brian, I don't mean to cut you off, but yeah. We are going to take the majority of the questions at the end of the presentation, because I know you're going to get a ton of questions regarding this topic, and we're close to the final slide. And I didn't mean to cut that person off, but I do want to make sure you stick around, because I know we're going to get a ton of questions, but I just want to get through the last few slides, and then we'll be ready to start the Q&A process.
Sounds good. Okay, I'll sit tight.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Before I pass it on to you, Kiesman, I just want to point out real quick, I may have missed this slide, but it's really important that you take note that all formats of your dues bill have to comply with all of what we just discussed, whether it's paper, email, online dues billing portal. And we ask that you submit your dues bill through this tiny URL link provided. This is the 5th slide. So once you submit your dues bill through this link, we'll review it and get in touch with you, letting you know what revisions you need to make. I want to point out, please, when you're providing us with credentials, make sure that the credentials are accurate. Sometimes there are typos and this delays the process. So please make sure that you're entering accurate information when you're submitting. I want to go now to the last slide and ask Keithman to talk about the member transfers.
Yep. Thank you, Eliza. So it's actually my turn to hijack Eliza's presentation. She actually just found out maybe 15 minutes before the webinar that I was throwing in a slide. And so since Brian discussed the frequency of when local associations should be submitting dues payments and uploading financial records to M1, I just wanted to talk about another reason why it's important that you upload the financial records to M1 and submit dues payments within 2 weeks. So a member pays dues and then transfers to another association before the financial record is uploaded to M1, right? So what happens if an association does not upload a member's financial record to M1 before a member transfers to another association? Well, the answer is the association will have to transfer the record back to their association, and the financial record will then have to be uploaded or added to M1. And then C.A.R.'s finance department will need to process the financial record before the record can be transferred back to the new association. And then the monthly reconciliation report and the BCT will show the new association owes dues for the member if these steps are not taken. So what needs to happen? Well, like Brian said, when the association collects membership dues from a member, the financial record must be uploaded to M1 and the payment must be sent through e-commerce within 2 weeks. And so I just wanted to cover that. That was something that I covered in Long Beach during my presentation. So I just thought this fit right in with our discussion. Thank you, Eliza.
Thank you. And as promised, here's my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions you may have down the road. I know sometimes you don't think of the question as you're hearing the presentation, and later on you think of additional questions. Do not hesitate to contact me. I will do my best to give you an answer, and if I don't have one, I will find one for you. I also want to give the contact information for Lisa Edwards. She's our political fundraising coordinator. Lisa's amazing. She really goes out of her way to help out the associations and help them comply. So please reach out to her as well with any questions you may have. At this time, I guess we can start taking questions, Keithman.
Yes, thank you.
Or actually, no, you wanted to talk about the dues billing and resources page.
Oh, perfect. All right, so we'll take questions after this. So I wanted to share the dues billing resource page with you. Let me just, if you can unshare your screen, sure, Eliza, and I'm going to share my screen. Thank you. Perfect. I was getting nervous for a minute. You know, this is the time where you start sweating when you have to take over and start sharing your screen, and you start seeing other screens that you don't want to share. And so I'm glad it worked. So this page was actually designed to provide associations with the resources they need in order to have a favorable dues billing experience. That's exactly what we want the associations to have, is a favorable dues billing experience. As you know, all local associations must have their dues billing statements and online portals reviewed and approved by C.A.R. before you make it available to your members. And so this page is actually designed to provide all the forms and disclosures and materials that you need for the dues billing process. And so one of the things that we don't have up here yet, which is we're still recording today, is the dues billing compliance training webinar. So that's going to be available for you as well, which will be actually available this afternoon. Also, we have the dues billing statement audit and review form that you can actually click on, and today you can actually start submitting your forms in so that we can start the review and approval process. We also have the dues billing checklist, which Eliza covered today. We also have the legal verbiage and disclosures. We have the dues billing template for 2023. And then the new thing that was added to this list is the 2023 dues billing statement annotation. And this is just a tool that includes a complete breakdown of what each section represents on the dues billing statement. So I thought that was pretty powerful. And so thank you, Eliza, for sharing that with us. We also have the Nerds E-commerce financial setup training video. So in this training video, you will find the step-by-step instructions on how to update the Nerds invoicing module, which allows you to send out your dues billing notices to your members, and where members can access their invoice to pay their state, national, and local dues. We also included the PowerPoint slides and the download instructions so that it makes the process a lot easier for you. We also have the guidance for local lobbying, and then we also updated the dues proration schedule for 2023. And so that information is all available. Also, last but not least, we have the California Realtor application Exhibit A that is going to be available hopefully within the next 24 to 48 hours, but you will see that information once it's posted. Also included on this page is the 2023 payment type codes for dues billing. You can see we included the payment type code, the payment amounts, late fees, and as you know, C.A.R. dues has increased, so you'll see it on the screen. It is $225, as well as the C.A.R. late fee has increased. It went from $30 to $50, so that information is posted on you. So again, this is information that we wanted to make available to you. The good news is, again, local associations can start submitting their forms today so that you can start having your dues billing statements and online portals reviewed today. Again, for your benefit, we have provided this all-inclusive resource page for everything you need related to dues billing. And that's my update.
Thank you, everybody. Nick and Kiesman will be getting out the follow-up email to everyone who registered, as well as all AEs, so that this information can be disseminated to staff. We will obviously be taking into consideration some of the questions we were unable to answer today and come up with answers for you and disseminate that information as well. And please, again, remember that for those of you who use Rapatoni, we will be doing an AM 101 on Wednesday with Rapatoni. She'll be filling out the form on the spot so that you can see, or filling out the information on the spot so that you can see what it is that you need to do. And if you have any questions regarding Rapatoni, you can go ahead and pose those to Rapatoni. And Sarita kindly put her information in, I think, did you leave out a letter in your email? Yeah. So it's sarita@mercedcounty.com. So it's for Joseph, but it's public information now, and there's still 118 of you online. So Sarita, plan the rest of your day to be answering these questions. I really want to thank everybody, all of the C.A.R. staff that was on, in particular, Kiesman, Brian, and Eliza. Thank you, Shuyin, for also chiming in, and for all of you for giving up your time this morning. I really appreciate it. I hope this helps. We will be giving you the links to all the information because I know no one got everything this morning, and you'll all have to go over it. And for the newer AEs, we're going to have a separate meeting to, and I'll talk to Brian and Eliza and Kiesman to get you, for if it's your first time for billing, get you all in one Zoom room and answer some questions. So thank you, everybody. Great AM 101. Thanks to everybody who contributed and their questions and everyone who attended. Bye.